Hello all, I would like to present an overview of the modern portfolio theory and efficient frontier model. In 1952, Harry Markowitz developed the modern portfolio theory, for which he was awarded Nobel Prize in Economics. The theory presented a mathematical model for constructing portfolios of assets in such a way that the expected return is maximized at a given level of risk. The two major concepts in modern portfolio theory are: the ultimate goal of all investors is to maximize return for any level of risk. Risk can be reduced through diversification by creating a portfolio of unrelated assets. Modern portfolio theory is shortly referred to as MPT, and it is also known as Markowitz theory of portfolio management. MPT emphasizes on diversification of investments by creating a portfolio of assets from different classes instead of owning a portfolio of similar class of assets. Markowitz observed that return and risk from an asset should not be ascertained individually. Instead, these two factors have to be assessed by their contributions towards overall portfolio return and risk. Rational investors will not invest in a portfolio if a second portfolio exists with a more favorable risk expected return profile. Investors can reduce portfolio risk by holding combinations of assets that are not perfectly positively correlated. In other words, investors can reduce their exposure to individual asset risk by holding a diversified portfolio of assets. Risk in MPT is defined as the average variance in the expected return of an asset. The expected return is the estimated return that a security or asset is expected to produce. If two assets offer the same expected rate of return and one has a lower variance, then that asset is ideal for investment. Similarly, if two assets have the same variance but one of the securities offers a higher expected return, investors need to choose the asset with the higher return. Markowitz split risk into two subsequent categories. One is systematic risk. Systematic risk refers to market risks that cannot be reduced through diversification of investment. The entire market and the economy are exposed to systematic risk or market risks. The MPT does not claim to reduce this type of risk as it is inherent to an entire market or economy. Then unsystematic risk. It is also known as specific risk because it is specific to individual stocks or assets. MPT is useful in reducing this risk through effective diversification strategies. MPT uses mean variance analysis, which is a process of weighing risk expressed as variance against expected return. Variance measures how distant or spread the numbers in a data set are from the mean or average. The mean variance analysis shows the varying amount of risk at different levels of return. It allows the investors to find out the maximum possible return at a given level of risk and the least risk at a given level of return. This helps investors to make decisions about the financial instruments or assets for investment. In an ideal portfolio created by a perfect diversification of assets, the covariances among the individual assets determine the overall portfolio risk. A portfolio can be created by incorporating diversified assets such as stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc., which when combined come with varying levels of risk. If one asset decreases in value, then the loss is compensated by a gain in another asset. A portfolio comprised of various types of securities or assets is considered a better strategic move as compared to a portfolio comprised of only one type of asset. Mean variance analysis is an important part of portfolio management. Investors need to create their portfolios through proper diversification. They have to determine the level of asset diversification that is best suitable to maximize returns at minimum risk. Best portfolios can be determined with the help of efficient frontier. The efficient frontier is a graphical representation of all possible combinations of risky securities for an optimal level of return at a given level of risk. The efficient frontier shows a clear demonstration of possible portfolios created through diversification and provides an optimal level of return at a given level of risk. A portfolio is considered as efficient if it gives maximum possible level of expected return at a particular level of risk. The risk is represented by standard deviation of return of the portfolio. The efficient frontier is the top boundary of the upward sloped curve of the graph. In order to construct efficient frontier, expected returns from the portfolios created through diversification is entered in the y-axis while their level of risk is marked on the x-axis. The efficient frontier originates from the vertical axis or y-axis at the return value of the risk-free asset. It takes the shape of a curved line because every increase in risk results in a smaller amount of returns. There is a diminishing marginal return to risk, and so the efficient frontier is a curvature. Portfolios alongside the efficient frontier or lying on the efficient frontier are optimal portfolios. They give the maximum expected return for the given level of risk. Low return portfolios fall outside the efficient frontier. Portfolios plotted to the right of the chart have high amount of risk. The major advantage of efficient frontier model is that it allows investors to choose a portfolio that offers lowest possible risk at every level of return and choose a portfolio that offers the highest return at every level of risk. It should be noted that there is no single efficient frontier for all. Efficient frontier is different for every investor because it depends on various factors such as the number of assets in the portfolio, the industry of the assets, and the risk tolerance capacity of the investors. The efficient frontier graph helps investors to choose the portfolio combinations with the highest returns with the least possible risks. To sum up, the efficient frontier displays a combination of assets that has the optimal level of expected return for a given level of risk. All the portfolios on the line are efficient, and the assets which fall outside the frontier are not optimal because either they offer a lower return for the same risk or they are riskier for the same level of return.